Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jan Ślewiński. With recent geopolitical developments, Europe is facing the challenge of rebuilding its military capabilities. And according to a recent report by the Financial Times, the first results are already there, with arms manufacturing facilities growing 3 times faster than they would have ordinarily done during peacetime. With new weapons making their way into European armies as well as emerging technological challenges, is Europe on the road to achieving the status of a military powerhouse to match the strength of its economy? Joining us now is Damian Ratka, senior editor at Defense24. Hello and welcome to TVP World. So Europe is rearming, but is the pace of this rearmament sufficient given all the challenges that we're facing?
Absolutely not. The truth is that we do not have enough orders and contracts for what is most important and most needed. This is the heavy equipment. When we look, for example, at orders of heavy tracked combat vehicles, most countries that are ordering that kind of weapons in European industry are ordering only, let's say, a battalion of tanks. And not only they are ordering only a single battalion of tanks, like for example Czech Republic right now. They ordered only 44 Leopard 2A8s, which are 44 tanks is more or less a battalion-sized force. And when these vehicles will be delivered, single battalion only. Deliveries are scheduled for 2028, 2031.
So that's a bit slow, right?
It's extremely slow. For comparison, by 2030, Poland will have delivered all over 700 tanks from United States and the Republic of Korea. Europe is simply incapable to match production outputs of United States or Republic of Korea, or for example Russia. Even Russia is manufacturing more weapon systems right now than Europe.
Not to mention ammunition from North Korea. I mean, this is kind of humiliating, isn't it?
Yes.
It's one of the poorest countries in the world. It's outpacing one of the most powerful economies, the European Union, in terms of production of artillery shells. It's not even the most sophisticated kind of product, isn't it?
Well, this is because, of course, totalitarian countries like North Korea are investing a lot of their GDP into arms industry. This is obviously not good for citizens because they are poor. It is good for the arms industry. However, as you rightfully pointed out, Europe is pretty rich continent. And yet, there is a lot of talking, while when it comes to actual doing something, well, it's not. They are not doing enough to fulfill these needs that the armed forces have. And there is another problem, and this is a problem from the past. In the 1990s, when Soviet Union collapsed, Warsaw Pact collapsed, Western Europe started to reduce their armies, their reserves, their arms industry, and it's okay. In the peacetime, it's okay to reduce that, but Europe went too far. We pretty much do not have in Europe any reserves of equipment. Everybody is asking why Europe is not giving more weapons to Ukraine. Simply because there is nothing more that can be given to Ukraine without completely disarming armies in Europe.
And the manufacturing process is too slow, right? What are the most glaring deficiencies when it comes to what Europe needs to have, and yet it doesn't, or at least it cannot produce it on its own? One of these, apparently, is air defense systems, right?
Well, air defense systems are always problematic because they are very expensive. Not only the system itself, but ammunition for it. The missiles are very expensive. Americans also have problems with that, but they are investing more and more so they can gradually increasing the production output.
But we're talking about the sophisticated systems like the Patriot, the Iris-T. What about the low-cost alternatives? I mean, according to the Ukrainians, one of the best pieces of equipment they obtained from Germany, for example, was the Gepard. And that is pretty much a system that was around for a couple of decades now.
Yes, but the problem is that there are no more Gepards available. The problem is that the Gepard is not produced anymore, and the problem is that it will be very problematic to restart production of this system.
Why is that so?
Because it's based on the completely outdated Leopard 1 chassis. So either we are restarting production only of the turret system with the weapons and try to find different chassis for it, or we need to find an alternative. There are alternatives, like, for example, Skyranger system, but then again, this is a more advanced system, there's more electronics on board of it, and it's obviously more expensive and more time-consuming in production. So it's never that simple. The Europe have a problem that so far the orders were too small. When orders are too small, then manufacturers need to scale down the production capabilities, because otherwise they will have not enough money to keep that production capability, keep the workers in the job.
So if they are supposed to be investing, they need to have the security of knowing that, okay, the market for the products is there, right?
Yeah, so European countries will need to order very large numbers of weapon systems. This is another problem in Europe, because in Europe we often order weapon systems only to match the active structures of the army. So we are not ordering more weapon systems to create reserves, to create not only reserves for the wartime, so as a replacements for the losses, but also we are not creating enough reserves to rotate equipment during the peacetime, because, you know, when the equipment is in the active component of the army, it is used. So from time to time it needs to go to the repairs, overhauls, etc. But when you take that weapon system for the overhaul, it's not in the army, and we have no reserves to rotate that weapon systems. So this is a problem, that the orders are too small. Because the orders are too small, industry is not capable to expand its production capabilities, and this again increases the costs, because there is no economy of the scale, and also increases the times from order to the delivery of the system.
Speaking of economies of scale, do you think that highly sophisticated, very expensive systems could be one of the reasons why we're facing this problem? Shouldn't we focus on systems that are more robust, perhaps less complex? Some people are pointing out that currently we have this great surge of drone manufacturing in Ukraine. Drones have become pretty much the byword on the battlefield today. Is Europe sleeping on this development by ordering more tanks, more helicopters, instead of boosting the manufacture of, say, drone interceptors, for example?
I would ask several simple questions. If Ukraine is basing its armed forces on drones, is Ukraine winning the war?
To what extent, one could say Russia is also using drones quite extensively?
Not exactly. Russians on the front lines are mostly uses what we call meat waves. So they are using mostly light infantry. But what Russians are doing also, the true Russian army is not fighting in Ukraine. This is what is fighting in Ukraine. These are mostly, people from entire Russia, and not only Russia, that came fighting for money, and they are criminals or let's say problematic citizens fighting there. And losing them for Russia is not a big deal. But the true Russian army is on the back. It is rebuilding its armor and mechanized forces. Russians are manufacturing new tanks, new artillery systems, new infantry fighting vehicles, armored personal carriers. They are taking older equipment from the Soviet times, from the storage areas, and they are overhauling them, modernizing them, and preparing the true army for something in future. We don't know yet what.
Well, they've also sustained massive losses, right? So one quick question, because unfortunately we're running out of time. Would you say that perhaps in the case of the European armies, we once again should revisit the experiences from Ukraine and think about what should be our priority? If not drones, then what?
In the 1980s, there was that concept in NATO called air-land battle. Air-land battle was developed to defeat enemy that have superior numbers with a force that is maybe smaller, but is more advanced technologically, better trained, and in terms of mobile warfare, mobile defense, is able to grind down that superior numerical force. And this is the way to fight. Ukrainians were fighting that way up until mid-2023. When they were fighting that style of mobile warfare, they had superior results on the battlefield. They were able to defeat superior numbers of Russians. When they started to fight like the Russians are fighting, building trenches in static warfare this is attrition warfare style, this is when the mistake was made. Back then the Russians won the war because they are able to sustain much more losses than the Ukrainians. If you want to fight that force, you need to be more mobile, more deadly for the enemy, and in the same time, thanks to the mobile nature of warfare, if you are better trained, you have better coordination, better command, you can reduce your own losses. When you play the game like the Russians want to play the game, you're already lost. Because it's not only war for now, it is war for next 10, 20, 30 years. What will happen with Ukraine when we finally will start to count their demographics? What are their demographics in the future? This is the problem. Can we sustain that fight in Poland, for example? I have serious doubts, considering our own problems with demographics. We need to reduce our own losses and maximize the losses of the enemy. And this can only be achieved with superior technology, superior firepower, superior survivability, better maneuverability of forces, and better control and command of the forces.
Which also helps effective deterrence, which is one of the keys towards making sure that the war actually never happens. Damian Ratka was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight. And I'm Damian Ratka, you're watching TVP World. Stay with us for more latest news and updates.